Hi Aries, welcome back to the Astrology 33 channel. This is your May 2026 tarot reading. Thank you to those of you who have liked, viewed, shared, and subscribed to the channel. I appreciate all of that. For those of you new to the channel, as far as what we have in front of us, it's a 12 card spread with each of those cards representing a different house of the zodiac. Starting with your sign, Aries, as the first house, all the way through to Pisces representing the 12th house. When we get through all that, we'll pull an oracle card as well for some additional insight. As far as the decks being used this month, for the main tarot deck, we have the Brady Tarot, and for the Oracle deck, we'll be using the Wisdom of the Oracle. But we're actually going to start the reading off by rolling those Astrology ice we have in front of us to get an idea of where your focus should be as far as that goes. All right, we have Mercury. So currently, Mercury's still in your sign, but on the 2nd of May, it's going to move into your second house, which is Taurus. And then on the 17th of May, it's going to move into Gemini. So pretty much it's wrapping up a transit through your first house. It's eventually going to move to your second house of possessions, health, work, finances, and then a little bit past the midway point of the month, it'll move into your third house of communication. All right, we have 6. So 6th house energy for you guys is Virgo, and in general, Virgo points, 6th house forever points to health, work, daily routines. Astrologically speaking, it's a little quieter there in the zodiac right now, but we do still have the South Node wrapping up a transit through there. That's going to wrap up in a couple of months. And we have Aquarius. So for you guys, Aquarius is your 11th house of friendships, groups, hopes, and wishes. And currently we have Pluto there. And Pluto is actually starting a retrograde on the 6th of May. So we'll keep that in mind as well. All right, so getting started with the main spread. For the first house, which points primarily to personality, self-awareness, and appearance, we have Mother of Feathers. So this is the equivalent of the Queen of Wands, which is actually the card for your sign, Aries. So at the very least, this tells me you're going to be feeling a lot like yourselves this month. Maybe you're going to feel comfortable. You've had plenty of transits moving through your sign, right? Of course, the biggest ones being Neptune in your sign and Saturn back in there. Chiron's been there for quite some time, but we still have Mars in your sign until the 18th of May. Like we mentioned, Mercury's still there currently. So plenty of things going through your sign, and that could be part of what's fueling this feeling of yours of feeling like you're back in your comfort zone, but that's what I see with that. All right, so for your second house of possessions, self-worth, and finances, we have the Hermit. So this is Virgo energy here. And to me, this is that you're being very thoughtful, strategic when it comes to your finances, right? To me, this is that you're really being smart around any spending that you might be doing, any investing that you might be doing as well. And just taking more of a low-key approach too, Virgo energy isn't typically like a very flashy energy, right? It's a lot more strategic, focused on hard work, things along those lines. All right, so for the third house, which points primarily to communication, short journeys, and siblings, we have the Magician. So this is definitely a good indicator here that when it comes to your communication, you're going to be well received, right? You're going to be able to get your messages across clearly this month. And maybe even if there has been something that you might have struggled with as far as communicating in the past too, this looks like you're going to get some more clarity there and improvement there. And the main thing that makes me think of that, of course, at the time we're recording this, we're pretty much having Uranus move into your house of communication currently. Well, technically Venus as well. So two pretty powerful transits moving into your third house there. All right, so for the fourth house, which points primarily to home roots and family, we have the Father of Roots. So this is really the equivalent of the King of Pentacles, which is a Taurus energy. So this could just be saying, especially as we move through Taurus season, right? You might be keeping a little bit more to yourselves this month, maybe enjoying your home environment, right? Maybe working on improving your home environment, doing renovations, things along those lines there, or even just standard spring cleaning, right? But it looks like you're definitely going to be focused on beautifying your home environment this month. For the fifth house, which points primarily to romance, creativity, and children, we have optimism. So this is basically the Four of Feathers, which is the equivalent of the Four of Wands in traditional tarot. So to see this here, this is definitely a positive energy. This is an Aries energy as well. So to see this here, to me, it says that you do have that optimism right around what you're working on, whatever that be. If you're trying to launch some kind of creative project, right, which maybe having a magician in your third house is helping fuel that as well. Or if this is something more along the side of romance, right, it could just be saying that I just feel like things are improving in those areas. All right, so for your sixth house energy, which in general is home, excuse me, not home, health, work, and daily routines, we have the Hanged One. So this is the equivalent to the Hangman, which typically to me is a Pisces type of energy. So to see this here could just be saying that maybe you're having a little bit of difficulty nailing down a routine right now, right? So maybe you're trying to decide what you want to do, right? So on the one hand, if you have this creative energy that's really coming up to the surface, but then there's another part of you just enjoying being in your home environment, right? You could just be trying to find a balance there. For others of you, could just be saying that when it comes to your work, maybe you feel like things are a little bit in limbo there, right? You might not know what the next best step would be at this time, so you could just be figuring that, okay, no need to make any drastic moves, right? But similar to what we see with the Hermit energy here, this is another reflective thinking type of energy, so you could just be trying to figure out what you want to do from this point forward. Right. So for your seventh house energy, which points to partnerships, contracts, relationships, we have breach. So this is the Seven of Horns, which is the equivalent to the Seven of Cups in traditional tarot. So to see this here, what I'm getting with this primarily could just be saying that there could be some overdue conversations that might finally come out this month. But typically when it would happen in this manner, right, with the breach energy, could just be saying that it's one of those things that's not as controlled as you might have liked, right? So for example, maybe you kept putting it off, like, okay, I have to have this conversation, I have to have this conversation, but keep delaying it. And then finally it just happens, right? You're not prepared for it. It just kind of either you blurt it out or the other party blurts it out. And then there's some damage control to do from there. Obviously, it's not, maybe that sounds a little more dramatic than it would play out in the reality, but that's primarily what I'm getting with this. So, especially seeing the magician and your third house communication, I feel like this is just saying if we piece those two things together, if there is some kind of a conversation that needs to happen, this might be a good time to do it while you can still, have some control with how it comes out. So for the eighth house energy, which points to death, rebirth, intimacy, and investments, we have the Mother of Roots. So this is a Capricorn energy here. And to see this, I feel like this is saying that, similar to what I was saying with the Hermit, right? I feel like this is just the energy you're in right now, where I feel like you're applying long-term thinking to what you're doing right now. So this could just be saying, if you have been building a foundation, right? So maybe if you've been smart and strategic around how you've been spending your resources recently, maybe investing them. Now, when we say resources, of course, the first thing you think is money a lot of times, but it could just be resources in the term of time, right? Your energy, whatever the case may be. It looks like you've built a solid foundation here, and even this is saying that even if you don't see that reflected in the outward world just yet, I feel like you're going to start to see some signs that that's the case. Right, so for your ninth house, which generally points to philosophy, higher learning, and foreign affairs, we have departure. So for you guys, ninth house energy is Sagittarius, and this does make me think of the fact that at the very end of May, on the 31st, we will have full moon in Sagittarius, so could be pointing more so to that timeline than anything. But yeah, this could just be saying maybe you've been questioning your beliefs recently, right? Maybe there have been things that you've felt work for a long time, and now those could be coming under review, right? I mean, you've had some significant transits over the years. Like we said, now you have Neptune and Saturn in your sign. Wasn't that long ago they were in your 12th house, right? That could have been some things that made you revisit some beliefs. We still have the North Node moving through your 12th house as well, so that could be fueling that as well. But yeah, to me, this is just saying that maybe you're just shedding some old beliefs that you find no longer fit your life. It doesn't have to be a negative thing in that regard. Right, and speaking of belief, for the 10th house, we have truth. So this is really the equivalent of the Ace of Swords in traditional tarot. And seeing this here, interestingly, we see the owl symbolism again, right? Just like we saw in the second house. So yeah, so this could just be saying maybe you're finding yourselves with less limiting beliefs than you might have had when it comes to finances, when it comes to your career goals, right? And on the one hand, maybe that could come forward in some uncomfortable ways, but definitely for the overall improvement of your situation. So that's really what I'm seeing with this, right? Where, excuse me, with the departure energy we saw there with the ninth house, just be saying, things you might have believed for a long time, might be revisiting those and realizing that you actually might have more power, right? Which is something I would think of with the magician, more control over your scenario than you might have thought in the past. All right, so for your 11th house, which points to friendships, groups, hopes, and wishes, we have conflict. So this is basically the equivalent of the nine of feathers, which is a Sagittarius energy. So funny enough, I was just saying how you might be leaving some beliefs behind, and to see this energy come up in this energy of the groups, friendships, right? This would just be saying that maybe some of the beliefs you're holding now might come into conflict with the beliefs of those that you've been dealing with over the years, right? So maybe there could be a bit of a split there. Um, the nine energy doesn't have to be a permanent type of rift, right? It could just be as simple as you have an argument with a friend, and a week later you guys are over it, things are fine, but it could just be one of those things where there could be a butting of heads when it comes to beliefs this month. All right, and for your 12th house energy, we have the Tower. So the 12th house in general could point to spirituality, blind spots, mental health. So to see this energy here, that does come across as a little bit intense, right? Especially given that in the more outward type of energies within the spread, there doesn't appear to be anything hugely pointing to this type of energy coming to the surface for you guys. The closest thing I would say that really might be like the Hanged One in the 6th house, maybe Breach to a lesser extent. Um, but yeah, this could just be saying try not to overwhelm yourselves, right? Which I get, right? Because if you are, like we said, maybe shedding beliefs that you might have held for a long time, even though, like I said, it seems to be an improvement on the situation, it could be as simple as maybe you might kick yourselves, right? Like, oh man, all this time I didn't believe I had as much control over my situation as I did, right? So I stayed in a situation longer than I should have. Things along those lines there. You could just be challenging yourselves in that way and getting a little frustrated. Because even though technically, yes, Saturn, for example, is in your first house as far as it's in Aries, but let's say hypothetically, let's say you're an Aries rising at 23 degrees, right? So technically, it's still really 3 or 12th house, which could still be a heavier energy, right? Or let's say you were born, I don't know, April 16th, right? That's toward the end of Aries, so you might not be feeling the Saturn energy as strongly as someone who's born on like March 27th, So it could just be as simple as that, too. Different areas are going to be at different points along that transit, but overall, like I said, I feel like this is just saying try not to be too hard on yourselves with overthinking things and having regrets around. Again, because like I said, it looks like the present might be pretty positive, but you might be inclined to think back to, oh, this could have been as good as it is now way back then, too. And speaking of which, for the bottom of the deck, we have burden. So this is the Ten of Feathers, which is more Sagittarius energy. So yeah, it could just be saying, again, like I said, you might just be hard on yourselves because, again, I don't feel like it's really because the present isn't going well, but more so it is going well. And you're like, oh man, I spent all this time going through difficulties. I could have been on this path a long time ago. We'll see what the Oracle card adds to the mix, though. So just going to give this a few shuffles, then we'll cut the deck and pull a card. Okay, let me get this out of the way, and we'll see what you got. All right, we have Thinker. There's the artwork, and the number's 44. So interesting, right? What I was saying with the Tower energy, trying not to overthink things, and the Hermit we mentioned is a very thoughtful energy, so is the Hanged One, right? But we'll see what it says in the book. All right, essential meanings says strategy, being analytical and logical. The Oracle's message, the ability to reason and strategize is the focus now. Take things at face value and follow the logical path. Your calculations will prove to be correct, for in this moment there is no deeper meaning than what is obvious. Things are exactly as they seem. You have all the information you need. Keep it simple and you will win the game of life you're playing right now. So I do like that message because that can point to the potential for the overthinking, right? Like we said, especially with the Hanged One in the sixth house. So hopefully that resonates with you guys. The relationship message says love is not logical, but when you choose a partner, it is good to have things in common other than desire. This is a time to weigh the pros and cons of your partnership. If there is enough common ground, go for it. If not, there are other fish in the sea. Don't force it to work. And should others tell you who they are, take them at their word. Now is not the time to indulge in a fantasy. No matter what, in this case, the facts are the facts. So yeah, reading that one definitely took me back to what I was saying with the breach energy in the seventh house, right? So maybe there is something that you're feeling along those lines beneath the surface that you feel like there is this overdue conversation that you need to have, right? Maybe it is one of those things. So I was saying, maybe you find that you don't have the same beliefs as friends, but maybe it's more so within your romantic connections too, and there could be a splitting there. But hopefully that resonated. The prosperity message says calculated action is called for now. It's important to sit down and plan a strategy. Focus on the steps you're going to take to claim your prosperous life. Lists are your friends now, so get out your journal. Write down what you're going to do today to signal to the universe that you're serious about attracting abundance. Your plans and strategies will yield wonderful results. Remember, your most effective strategic partner is spirit. You will win this game, and your triumph will be for the highest good of all. So yeah, that definitely sounds like a pretty solid message as well. So once again, hopefully that all resonated with you guys, and we'll wrap up there. All right, bye.